Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an A-Pro member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is A-Pro's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. A-Pro membership is about way more than advocacy. A-Pro connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. A-Pro's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. A-Pro's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. A-Pro is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With A-Pro, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the A-Pro family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with A-Pro. Hello and welcome to the RTO Show. I'm your host, Pete Chow, and today I'm talking rent-to-own with Mike Skehan from Buddy's Home Furnishings, Buddy Mac Holdings. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing great, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Listen, I wanted to get Buddy Mac on here. You guys are the biggest franchisee of Buddy's Home Furnishings. Is that correct?
Kind of, sort of, yeah.
Kind of, sort of. The big guys on a block with 84 locations, is that right?
84 right now, working on 86.
Okay. Oh, we're working on 86. Oh, we're expanding. Now, if you guys know, Buddy's Home Furnishings is around 300 plus. That would give you guys like almost 1/3 of the population of Buddy's Home Furnishings. You guys span over 10 states now?
I believe it's 8.
8 states.
Yeah.
All right. So we span over 8 states, going on 86 locations. Now, you're the divisional manager, which means that you cover half of that. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. I cover 44 of the locations from East Oklahoma all the way to down to Tampa, Florida.
All right. Down to Tampa, Florida, where we are at, guys, right now. And so who controls the other half or works the other half?
So that would be Joe Bob Ellis. He does Texas and New Mexico and a little bit of Oklahoma, too.
Joe Bob. If you guys don't know Joe Bob, he is one of the greatest guys in rent-to-own. He's been around a long, long time, and he brings some good history to the table. And then you guys work directly under Chip Guy. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Chip's been in the business a really long time.
Chip, I think, started in Buddy's around 2003. And
Wow.
we kind of both started out as delivery techs for Buddy's Home Furnishings. He started a little bit before I did. I think I started in 2007.
The hierarchy in rent-to-own is always based on the guys who started at the bottom. There's a lot of people who started in this business as account reps, as drivers, and then they work their way up, and that's how you know the business, how you get bought into the business. You just know it. You learn it, and you can see what's going on. But today I wanted to talk about the gap between the upper management and the lower management and how we fix that, right? How do we get our people to see what we see? Because we've been there, right? We've done those jobs. We've done the deliveries and we've done collections and we've done sales and we've run stores and we've run regions and now divisions. So you've kind of worked your way up from the bottom all the way to where you're at now. What's the goal? What's the 5-year goal look like for Mike Skehan?
The 5-year goal, I would say, is to continue to get great at what I'm doing now in this position. I think that in order to do that, I got to be the best. Means I got to have the best people that I surround myself with on a daily basis, and because they're the ones that are going to go out there and they're going to drive results. So I think we've got to get really great at collecting our money, managing our inventory. I think that we have to have a greater respect for our inventory than what we've had in the past. And that kind of translates to both, refurbishing in the stores and being able to collect on it by putting it out in a smart way, not overloading customers. And I think that's a real hot topic for us right now, for a lot of other companies as well. So really loving our inventory, loving our people, I think is a real big part of success. You got to get that culture right in your company before you can really get people to walk through walls for you.
I want to say culture is like the number one topic on most of the podcasts. It always comes back to the culture, right? Whether we're talking about sales, collections, product choices, opening stores, management, entry level, it always comes back to the word culture, because culture is what we bring to the table in order for our employees to buy into what we're doing. You know, it's funny you bring up product management, because not that long ago, a good friend of the show, Jason Winters, was on the show. And he does what we call the Jeffed Up story.
Yeah.
Now, his story is basically like how somebody with the best intentions can kind of really ruin the situation if they're not managed properly. They're not given the proper culture as far as, you know what, we love what we do and we love our customers, but we need you to be a part of that too. And this is how you can do it. And product plays a big part of that, whether it's depreciation, whether it's buying, whether it's charging off, whether it's what's on rent. Everything plays a big part, especially because we are a rent-to-own business with product as furniture, high-end stuff, low-end stuff, you know, TVs that are 85 inches all the way down to 43 inches, right? So product love is a part of that. The Jeffed Up story is an awesome story, but it has slides and there's a storytelling element to it that just cannot be captured on podcasts, so we're going to do it in a different way. But loving and maintaining the product is a huge part of what we do. And I mean, what do you think is the best way to present that to someone? You're a division manager. You've been here for 20 years. You've seen it. You've done it. You've seen how it affects us. So then how do you get it from the upper management down to the effective designation to our entry-level positions?
Well, I think you got to be really good at explaining it. You know, I think people have to see the reasons why, the positive reasons why they need to do that. So you got to get that buy-in. And don't get me wrong, I think it can be very difficult at times from where I'm at to get the message all the way down. And matter of fact, I think that's probably the biggest challenge that, you know, that I face, because, you know, hey, it's a whole lot more than just saying, hey, can you fix that?
Right.
It's really getting people to buy into it. So, you know, in order for that to happen, I think a few things that I've got to be really good at doing. Okay. Number one is selling it. Okay. You need to know why it's advantageous for you to get really good at managing your inventory and taking good care of it. And then I think the second thing on that would be some accountability. And I think that's one of the things that we have spent a lot of time building culture, okay? And I think that we have a great culture, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But I think that is something that we've done a really good job perfecting. But from the getting it done, I think sometimes we forget about accountability in it. For a long time, they say money cures all ills, right? But business has changed over the last, it changed radically during the pandemic, and it was easy. And then, you know, it started to get a little bit tougher in 2022, around the summertime.
Yeah, right.
It's always the summertime.
Around the summertime,
we didn't really experience 2022, tough, okay? 2023, really tough. And what's driving that? Inflation, a lot of things, you know, economy and state of mind, I think, drive a lot of that stuff. But we've got to find a way to win. In order to do that, I think the inventory becomes a much bigger issue than it's ever been in the past. You know, if we're just slinging it out, we're not going to be able to collect on it. So we're wasting money by doing that. We're wasting time, resources, and we're depreciating product. By accountability, I think, is not just in, hey, you're going to be great at refurbishing product and getting it back on your floor. But one of the things that we challenge is average past day pickups. Their standard was 7 days for us. I'll tell you right now, we're running 15 on that. So it's more than doubled. We're so far away from standard. And what is that doing to your product out there not being collected on and waiting that long to actually go pull the trigger and pick it up?
When you say 15 days, and just want to dive into that a little bit. So 15 days, I'm an average store manager, and I know that I should probably be picking it up at that time frame. Do you feel like GMs are holding on to it now a little bit longer than they should because they're in fear of losing that customer? Because now it might seem to them a little bit harder to get another one on the books to replace it?
Absolutely. And it is, if you're just waiting around for someone to, as they say, you know, door to swing, the phone to ring, if you're waiting for that, you're going to lose. You're going to be sorely disappointed on a daily basis when that just doesn't happen. So, there's a lot of things that we've got to improve upon and be great at in order to get those swings and those rings. Okay. But yeah, I think it changes, and, you know, different companies have different metrics with number of days they want to pick somebody up. I mean, probably for a monthly paid customer, 15 days may not seem crazy. But for a weekly paid customer, if you've been in the weekly game for a while, and I know you have, Pete, because I've known you for a long time,
Yeah.
the weekly customer, when they get to that day 6, it's, talking about habits, not letting them break the cycle of a habit of paying you when they're supposed to. So further they are past due, they're getting further away from that habit, not to mention they owe you a whole lot more money. So, in a perfect world, we get the payment on time, okay? For that 20% of your customers, you need to get that handled, on day 6 at the latest,
Well, when you're coming from upper management, right, a lot of what we see is what's going on in the store at the store level through reporting, right? You take a look, and because you can't be in at 44 stores all at one time, right? So you have to take a look at what's going on in the different regions, and then you take a look, okay, this particular average is a little bit higher. Let me find the spike points. Okay, it's this particular store with a spike point of returns at 15, 16 days. Let's address that. One of the things that I found is that sometimes when we're navigating it so far away from the store, sometimes getting that message, it's like a game of telephone, right? You call a regional, and then they call a store, and the store talks to the individual, and the individual talks to the customer. What do you think is the most effective way for getting the right game of telephone? Because you can't get away from it. You want to shorten it, or you want the message to be clear enough that it goes straight line from one to the other. But sometimes right now, and what I've seen and what I've had other people talk to me about is when it gets down to somebody who's talking to the customer, and the customer's going, everything's higher. I don't have this. I want your product, but I don't have the means to take care of it. How do we get that buy-in, or how do you convince someone from that far away from you? And when I say not necessarily space, but the idea that somebody doesn't understand my market. How do we get them to buy in and say, I understand exactly what's going on. I've got it happening in 43 other locations, and I do know, but the results of what we're allowing to happen are going to cause some negative effects that you might not see. How do we effectively get somebody to buy in on that situation? Because sometimes they think we're crazy. Sometimes they think we're so far away from it that we just don't know what we're talking about.
I think you can do a couple things there. I mean, I think number one, it's going to start with, making the right decisions on who you have hired to be a regional manager for you. Because if they don't buy into what's coming out of my mouth, then it's never going to work its way down. People have to believe. So, and sometimes I think, there's room for debate about things. I know some people can get things done differently or in a different way than how I would. And you got to be open to that. So that's okay. I mean, if you can drive the result that ultimately that I want, and you just want to do it a little bit different, I encourage people to have the freedom to do that. And that's one of the things that makes this company great too, is that we can do that. Obviously, if it's not working, then I might intervene on some of those things. Okay.
Right.
But ultimately, having the right people, the right regionals that share the same values as you, and that you can trust, because you have to have trust. So that one-on-one conversation that we do every week where we're talking about problems and ultimately you probably know they know the answers. Trying to get those answers out of them without giving them to them, I think, is key, because, it's like you're getting their buy-in by them telling you what needs to happen and then going out there and doing it. I think after that one-on-one is done with me and my regional, then I think it's up to my regional at that point to actually go into the stores and demonstrate those things. And I think some managers, a phone call would be great. But, for the ones that, have the attitude, like you were saying, of, oh, they don't know what I'm dealing with over here. I think that's where, we've got to get our hands on things and to be able to demonstrate that, these things are possible within the four walls. So I think that's kind of how that happens.
Is there ever a point, because I've seen different companies do different things, and I've always noticed that there's a share point when somebody comes to the store, right? There's always those visits. Some people visit more, some people visit late. When is it a time to visit a store? Is it a scheduled time, or as a DM do you go, you know what? I need to show this store a little love. They need to see it from the top just to know I am going to be here. I do see what you're going through. And in this particular situation, this is how we're going to handle it. Or is it more of I'll be there when I get there because I have so many things on my plate that I need to be able to share that love all over the place?
Yeah, I think if you try to share that love all over the place, physically, you're going to lose. I really think that, you have to be very intentional with what you're doing and have a plan. For example, the way in a perfect world and something that I do require is that, hey, every Monday is an office day. So I think that a regional can get a lot of their week not only planned, but they can have some really good conversations with their teams, order inventory, go over reports themselves, understand what's happening in their stores, do those one-on-ones, do a conference call, solve a lot of problems on that Monday, because you really need to be able to free yourself on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. No regionals are working on Saturday, maybe a little work in the morning, check up on their stores, but I don't want anybody working on Saturday. I don't even want general managers working on Saturday. We can talk about that too, if you'd like.
We're going to go back to culture and accountability on that one.
But that Monday's that office day, the Tuesday and Wednesday, I think you need to be at your worst performing store. You'd stay there for a couple days. And then on that Thursday, Friday, maybe you go to your second worst performing store, or you do that on Thursday. And then, I really like it on Friday when you're in your store that's hurting the most on sales. And that's kind of like that getting in there part where you go in there and you show them how to sell, you role play it, and you actually demonstrate that. It's like, hey, nobody believes you can get $100 down until somebody goes in there and gets $100 down and shows you, hey, this is possible. I mean, $500 is possible, but they may not believe it until they see it. So I think seeing is believing on that. But to go out to all your stores every week, you're just chasing your tail. You got to be very intentional. And I think a plan that you make on Monday and you stick to it. So look, if the plan is like, hey, I need to fix credit at store so-and-so, I'm going to spend 2 days on that. A secondary thing that I want to do in that store is this, I want to work on some sales or some binders or whatever it is. Same thing on Thursday and Friday, and stick to the plan, because you're going to have a million different things that are going to happen throughout the week, throughout the days of the week, throughout the hours and the minutes
they come up
that, are going to try to distract you. And, if you have a somewhat just decent team of general managers, I'm not even saying the best, they could handle a majority of those problems on their own. And I think it's important, though, when those things do come up that, instead of telling them what to do, ask them, will you tell me what we should do there? Because they probably 95% of the time know the answer. And I think the better we can get at that, I think those calls do start to subside. But no matter what happens, short of a store's on fire, okay, you are going to stick to your schedule and you're going to accomplish what you want to accomplish that week. And nothing else can get in the way of that, short of a fire.
I think it's really important. We talked about this off the air a couple of times, and today we're talking about how to get that message from the top to the bottom. But I think that also includes everybody's successes. And we've talked, what is a success? And a success can't be, I'm just going to get credit down. I'm going to make a sale. I'm going to open my store today. It's got to be, success has to be something narrowed down to the event of it happening. I'm going to make 3 sales today in the event of I'm calling my sales leads today and I plan on making 3 sales. I'm going to move 90-day idle. I'm going to move 1 90-day idle a day and make that a success. That's my success story. Those are small success stories. The larger success stories, I want to grow my store, but not I'm going to grow my store. My success story is, how am I going to do that? I know this week I'm going to have a lot of pickups. So let me plan that out. And a success for this week might be $200. My success for next week might be $2,000 because I've handled credit this week. And I think writing those successes down means that at every level, including the regional level, write what your successful week looks like. Not just have a successful week, not go out there and say, hey, it's a great idea and this is the blanket statement that's going to cover everything. This is what a successful week looks like. And hand that down to whomever is underneath and say, this is what I think a successful week looks like for you. Next week, you need to send me what a successful week looks like to you in the sense that I want these goals met. Hey, I think you can handle this. Now you create this list and send it up to me and we can both agree. Or I can tell you, hey, man, this might need a little help. But I think sometimes we forget that even setting those goals is trainable. Even setting those goals can be worked on.
Yeah.
And you almost don't want to set yourself up for the failure, right? When you say, I'm going to win everything, and then you don't.
Well, they got to be smart. The goals.
Structured.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Measurable.
Measurable.
And they have to be realistic. And you have to have a plan, like you said. In that whole topic of, from top to bottom, how does that work? I think too that, I can speak for myself as a divisional manager. Getting out in the field, I think, matters too. Okay. The truth is I can work from home now all month. And maybe I might have to go to a few meetings, might have to travel for some of that. Okay.
That's a goal. I just want you to know, everybody, that is a goal to work from home.
Is it a goal? Is it a goal? I don't know. It's not a... Hey, I mean, if it comes with a great pay increase, I might be more interested in that. But and don't get me wrong, I do enjoy being at home, and to a certain point, I've been in operations a long time, Pete, like you. So I do like to get out in the field, and I think that we've got to be connected with the field. Okay, so if I don't ever go out there and see with my own two eyes, travel with my regionals, and see what's going on out there, I think that we're less connected. Okay. So I think the further we get away from that, the more trouble we get into with people and them thinking that, hey, these guys are asking me to do stuff that it's just not possible, and at a certain point, it might not be possible. And I think, hey, I'm not there to buy anybody's excuses, but I am there to see what's going on. And to be able to see with my own two eyes and my ears, what's really going on out there? What are the customers saying? Are we offering good customer service? Hey, if we have bad sales, I can see that on a report. It'll tell me your sales suck, right?
Right.
But why?
Do you think going into stores as a division manager helps you maintain those achievable goals?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Chow here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space, Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing, and let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too.
I think so. I think I do think that it helps keep my head down to the ground and not too far above the clouds. I mean, we always have to be challenging people and pushing for more, and that's never going to change. Okay, so if the number's 25 today and you get 25, guess what I'm going to ask you for?
30.
Yeah, I'm going to be asking
30.
you for 30. So I mean, like, it's never ending, right? But, to not fully understand, what's going on out there, I think can get you in a lot of trouble. And I say that, and there may be people that disagree with that, but I only say that based on my experiences with working for, different vice presidents or, different divisionals, whatever they called themselves, that, sometimes it's just like, man, what is this guy talking about? Does he have any idea what's going on out here? So, I mean, it's good for direction to the people, but it's also good for myself too, to know and understand like what's going on out here so we can overcome it. Because I can tell you right now, there is nothing that we can't overcome. It doesn't matter. Inflation's, look, we can talk about it and we can talk about how it's affecting us. Okay. We can talk about recession, but how do we overcome it? Okay. How do we overcome it is the question, right? But you can only ask that question if you know that you can overcome it. Okay. So one of the things that I've really pushed hard for this year has been percent collected. I'm on all the quarterly calls for Rent-A-Center and errands. I read all that stuff. I know what's going on out there. So percent collected has been a hot topic for me, and so have write-offs. In particular, skip zones. 3%. is the number, okay? And it's not a penny over that or a penny under that. That is what we're going to accomplish, and we know how to do it, okay? Big struggle, percent collected. We want to have a 13-week that is around 89, 90%, okay? We are typically, 2 or 3% ahead of everybody else. How why is that? Is it that people aren't paying their bills because of recession? No, it's not. It's what's important to us is important to them. And if we have accountability in that too, that's even better. It becomes even more important at that point. So, and what you're saying too about, hey, praising the accolades of the people who are. We have general managers that are collecting 95, 96, 97% on a 13-week trend. We have stores that are down a lot of agreements and customers right now on the year. But at the same time, we have stores that are positive on the year. How do you explain that?
Number one is the manager. I always think it's the manager.
It is.
I think
it's
it
the
starts
people.
there.
It's always the people, right? So what I've noticed the trend is the stores that are growing and have been growing past that 2022, that summer of 2022.
That's the mark, right? Isn't that the line?
It is the line, yeah.
That's the line, and now everything after that is more measurable onto like normal standards.
But you know what? Like, it's a beautiful line, okay? I love it. And I'm going to say, why do I love it? Okay, because it means I got to work harder, right? But I like to be challenged too, okay? So COVID 2020, 2021, we grew so much because we were open, all right?
Right.
We knew that we had families to feed and we were responsible for a lot of people. So we had to make the right choices. And sometimes the choices that we made, we were like, because it was scary, right?
Right.
God, I hope I'm making the right decision here. And we were right more than we were wrong, okay? What were we running back then? 92, 93, 94% as a company on a 13-week trend? Like, those are really nice numbers, okay?
Very nice numbers.
With growth, But after a while, Pete, it wasn't that hard to win. So after a while, it's like that line that I was talking about in 2022 where things, start to get a little bit harder and we kind of started to experience some summer. It made the job incredibly more difficult, but also I'm grateful for that. And 2023's been even more difficult. I'm grateful for that too, because it's just more challenges that we have to overcome. And what it means is that we've got to get back to the basics, okay? A lot of things went by the wayside.
I was just going to say that. So how many different situations have you seen? Because I've seen it a lot. I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm telling you, they say the same thing. You've got those people that either came in or started around that time frame, because we did have turnover. Turnover happened. It happened more lately, but we had a turnover, and they come in and they're like, oh, this is easy. I can rent and collect.
Right.
That's easy.
Yeah.
And then the line hits.
Yeah.
And then we're going back to rent to own. Here are the basics. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. This is not what it was last year. This is not what it was even 6 months ago. No, this is the real rent to own. You have to really get out there and love on your customers, but you have to put your standards on, like you said, create a culture and have accountability. Well, the culture was easy because everything was easy. The accountability wasn't so easy because it was just easy to get.
Right.
You needed to get a number, you got a number. You need to get a sale, you get a sale. You want to make profit, it's good. But when everything started going to the wayside, now the accountability comes up and the culture starts taking a hit because they feel like, man, you weren't squeezing me like this before. And it wasn't that hard for me to achieve before. How difficult was it from a DM perspective on the higher end to see those changes happening down on the store end and really reflect to them, hey, this is what we expected. We expected that once the money started going away, it was going to get a little bit more difficult, but we still want you here. We still love on you, but we've got to hold you accountable to the standards that we've always had. You just haven't really seen them yet. Yeah,
so absolutely. It became a whole lot more difficult. But I really think that a couple mistakes that I made. And looking back, I realized, and it took me, it was actually the end of last year, we do a customer appreciation event. And, we always push, it seems like every time we do this big sale, we have those stores that don't really pull their weight. So we really started to try to put a focus on like, hey, look, that market over there that guy's been doing this forever. He's going to kill it. He's proven it. We don't even have to mess with him other than just support him and make sure he's got product and marketing, right? How do we get these other ones better? So we spent a lot of time, on calls and just really trying to reach out and touch someone with the regionals. Put a lot of time and effort into it, but the result wasn't any better. In fact, it was worse. Okay.
That's an eye opener.
I did a little bit of digging. I'm trying to figure it out, because I'm a big thinker and I drive myself crazy with my thoughts, but I can promise you, if you're not thinking, I promise you I am. Okay. I'm thinking about this for a while, and I'm looking at the list of the stores that didn't perform well, and the error in my ways was assumptions. Okay. I assumed that everybody knew what a customer appreciation event was for Buddies and that they knew how to execute it. And I assumed that, they weren't hardworking people who were going to execute. That was an assumption I made. When I went through the list of the stores, I realized, Pete, that 45% of our general managers have only worked for us for a year. Okay. So these people came in during, 2021, 2022. How do I expect them to know how to do something or that they understand what's really expected of them when they've never even really been part of it before? So assumptions were made, right?
I think a lot of people forget that, being in the business a long time, I've done that myself, where you think that somebody knows because to you, it's not even second nature. It's like you can fall asleep on the idea. And sometimes I think we forget to add in the extra instruction, the extra detail, the extra love. And, guys, I'm going to tell you guys right now, to the RTO Nation that's out there is a reason why there's labels on products. And you think, God, who's going to do this? There's a reason why there's a label on the product. And sometimes I think we forget to add our label to the product. And what we say is we're going to have, let's say, an event. We're going to have this event and you need to buy in and we want to get everybody involved. But what really does that mean? Okay, well, this time frame you need to be doing this particular job, or your idea is to come up with this sales event to do this particular thing, and let me show you how to do that. And sometimes I think we paint with a broad stroke and we forget the details.
Well, yeah. So every day, every night, these stores, we don't normally do this, but I had all these stores rolling stuff to my email and texting me stuff on how many leads they had and how many RSVPs they had for people to come in, and how many pre-sales did they have. Come to find out, assumption, right? I thought they knew what that terminology was. Come to find out that, what I see as a pre-sale is something that you can activate the morning of the event. It is a for sure sale, right? That's a pre-sale.
Correct.
Well, they didn't know that. They thought that a pre-sale was a lead. And a lead is just someone who says, yeah, I might come see you, or yeah, I'll be there. Great.
There is a distinct difference.
But once again, assumption, and Pete, you actually were telling me a story the other day about you went into a store and the general manager told you that he's never allowed to leave a store. And consequently, that manager has high credit, right? So how is it that if a manager can't leave a store ever, right? I don't know who told him this.
Ever.
So I assume, Pete, that your guys know how to run credit. As simple as that is to me, that people would know these simple things, that's not the case, right?
Correct.
So what we find out is that the guy says that he can never leave the store. So let me ask you, how do you train someone if you never leave the store, how to knock on someone's door and get paid?
That was my first question. How do you train that?
Yeah.
If somebody trained you, how do you train that?
How is a manager going to be successful if he doesn't go out there in the field and train his people? Okay. And how is he going to know what's going on if he never leaves the store to go out there and run a couple times a month to make sure that your guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing? So assumptions, right? For the last 2 years, I've been scratching my head wondering, how is it that this kind of goes back to the whole customer appreciation, the assumptions business, okay? Pete, you ran a store, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Was there ever a day that credit didn't get called twice?
Oh, at minimum, it was 2. Whether somebody else
Right.
did it or whether I was there
No
till late.
matter what, right?
It was just the deal. We made 2 calls a day, period.
Okay. All right. So I look at call logs every day and I see that, a store's got, 85 customers past due and they made 4 phone calls.
That is a scary thought because that is the key to closing a door.
So exactly. So a couple things have to happen there, right? Number one, like we can't accept that. We've got to be looking at our reports and we got to make sure that, these things are getting done. But back to assumptions, we assume that stuff's happening every day. It's not, okay? It's more often it's not. So going back to that whole thing of, hey, these people have only worked for us since 2022, 2021, when this wasn't really the same business back then. So they really never had to call credit and work it and put as much effort into it as they do now. So assumption is that they're doing it. They're not. Okay. So then how do you get them to do it? What do you need to put in place for that? I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to time management, and you've got to teach your team how to manage time.
Yeah, Danny used to be all about time management. That was like one of his big things there.
Well, I mean, in back in the day, before the world changed, we used to tell people, hey, come work for us. And, we have health insurance and we have all these benefits and you're going to love it. It's different, Oh, by the way, here's the best part about it. You're going to get 5 hours of overtime every week. And I thought people were excited about that.
I was just talking about that with Jason Winters about, there was a time when we had good pay and then we brought in OT, right? And that overtime that was scheduled. So we had more people there, for a good time frame. And we thought that was the way you had to do it. We thought that.
Yeah.
But now we're almost seeing a little different.
Well, yeah. And, maybe another assumption that I made was that everybody wants to do that. Here's the deal. I mean, not everybody's like you or me, If they were, then we'd probably just be on a golf course right now, living it up, talking about, our $1 million bank accounts and our Ferraris, okay?
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to get there, Pete. But getting back to that whole thing of assumptions and overtime, look, you got to be great at managing your time, okay? Because right now, we've come to find out that people do want a work-life balance, okay? They're not all us. So we pay, we give them a much higher salary or per hour than what we did in the past, okay? But there's no more overtime. And I'm not saying that, hey, if there's not a shortage of people, that there won't be overtime. There'll be some. But that's not, as a company, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people work-life balance so they'll stick around.
That goes back to culture.
It does. So getting them that time means that the manager has to be better because they only have 40 hours instead of 45 or 48 or 50. I remember when we worked minimum 50.
Oh, yeah. I remember those days.
Yeah. And I didn't mind, because like you, me, we're trying to make a name for ourselves in this business. So, I would have worked 60 hours if you let me. I'd freaking done anything because, I want to have a great life. I want to be able to build something for my family and for myself. But so the time management has to be on point. And I don't think we talk enough about that. With regards to the calls, right? We had a lot of people who haven't been doing this for as long. They don't know, what about your DAP? What about your organizer in your store, right? So what I say is hey, twice a day, that has to be on the schedule. So you get there at 8:30. First thing that happens in the day is that calls get made, and you might maybe do that till 10:30, 11 o'clock, right? Then you do your deliveries, your service, your pickups, okay? And that has to be done by about 4 o'clock because we close at 6, okay? Or at least our doors close at 6. So 4, latest 5, right? Because you're going to have another couple hours that has to be on the schedule, and we don't leave until those 2 things get done, okay? That's going to get you a better percent collected, okay? And it's also going to, set yourself up for less returns as your customers are not going to get so far behind where they're in that 8 to 14 bucket, getting back to what we were saying. And you might find that you have people in your stores that it's not what they signed up for, okay? And that's okay. But just make sure when you find out that that's not what they signed up for, that you go find them something else to do and that you're not afraid to just let go because, you might have to go run the store, Pete.
You got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. And, you can't let that type of person continue to operate a store because they're going to operate it into the ground.
Getting back to growth, right? How often does growth get in the way of that pipeline of getting information from the top to the bottom? When we talk about, it might be easier for a company that has 7 to 10 stores, a little bit less easier from 20 to 30, a lot harder from 60 to 70, because then again, the visits change and you go from visiting the amount of stores that you would normally visit in the same time frame to visiting hotspots, right? So if I had 20 stores, I could probably visit more stores than I have hotspots for because there's time. When you're talking about 44 stores, it might be a little bit harder to visit less of the hotspots and just more of the hotspots because sometimes you don't want to just address the bad, right? Like you said, you want to cultivate the good too. You want to say, hey, you're doing a good job and you are doing this well. You might be doing this not so good and let's fix this here, but you are doing a good job, and pat you on the back and tell you that I love you and tell you I appreciate what you're doing here, and not always go to those, hey man, we've got to figure out if you even know what a customer appreciation day is, because you just don't. And this is why we got some bad numbers. So let's explain this to you. How far can you spread yourself? How far does management go, okay, we need to bring in another Mike, because you're going to get to the point where you're not able to put out the fires like you need to play that game of telephone and get our culture, our accountability, our connectedness where it needs to be, what we think is going to be the best at that level. How hard, where is that level? Where does that growth level come in?
I think for the most part, it's probably, I think for us, it'd probably be when we hit that 100 store mark, would probably be the time to have a third. I tell you, I mean, I got no problems handling 44 or 50 or even more. But I think, as far as getting the most bang for your buck and the quality and desired results for what we do, I would say you wouldn't want to go any higher than 50.
So the reason I brought it up is, you always want to make sure that whatever you see at the top, you feel at the bottom. It's almost like driving, right? And I know that as things happen, as Chip sees it, as Ian McDonald owns a company and he's talking with Chip and Chip's kind of driving it, right? Ian might own the car, but Chip's driving the car. And if he sees something, he can't directly turn the steering wheel. He's got to call you and he's got to call Joe and say, hey, we need to turn left. We need to turn right. And then you in turn call the regionals, which kind of on the gas pedals, right? Mm-hmm. That part where we decide, okay, we're saying to turn left, and it's taking way too long to get from up where I think we see the street signs and we see the lights to where we're hitting that blinker and actually turning. Oh, we missed that turn because there's just too much in between when we saw the problem and how we got it fixed. When you start seeing that there's too much of a delay between the thought process and the actual action of getting it done, then it's time to go, okay, wait a minute. Maybe there's too much in between. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean too much management, but maybe management is spread too thin over an area. Is that something that is always on the mindset when you have that many stores, that you don't want to spread guys too thin so that the energy and the culture of what you're putting down gets to the end result the way you want it to?
It's definitely something I think about a lot, especially as, we continue to see more challenges out there and just operations, period. I think that if you have some really good managers, you can operate, a regional manager can operate safely, maybe up to 10. I would probably like to see that number more like 7 or 8. I think 8's a good number. But like I said, if you have a really great RM who has a great team, you can do 10. I've seen guys do 12, But I think a safe number is like that 7, 8 number with regionals.
And always making sure that whatever we're putting out is being reached and felt the right way by everybody who's actually implementing the ideas.
It always comes back to people. So, if you have the right people, okay, and I'm telling you, I really try to invest a lot into people, not just with training, but also relationships. And me personally, I don't ever want my guys to feel like they're working for me, because they're not. To me, it's a partnership. And I think by having a partnership versus a boss associate relationship, then I think it opens up a whole lot more layers of communication that we can have. And I think that if we're both working on solving problems together, I think that it's a more healthier relationship that is going to get you more positive results. It really just depends on your people. And I think that it's something that we're talking about more. It's like, hey, is 10 too much? And if it is, is it 7? Is it 8? And if it is that, then what are my expectations? There's definitely some challenges out there with, making sure that, it's not too much for them and I'm not wearing them out because, these guys are freaking soldiers, I need them to be able to go and fight the fight every day. So if it's too much after a while, they're going to burn out like everybody else is going to burn out. If you're a manager that has too many customers and you can't handle it,
right,
you're going to burn out.
On a final thought, Dan Companion was on the show not that long ago, and he mentioned that in the lulls of the economy, sometimes we as an industry shine a little brighter. But one of the differences between one of these recessions or the possible recession that might be looming or coming is that we actually have been hiring more, even though we are facing a recession, which is a little bit different because usually when we face a recession as an industry, it gets better. And it gets better for a couple different reasons because we're not a credit-driven industry. And that also we offer a couple options that are painless to a customer if they can't afford it, of course.
If they're all maxed out on their credit or they can't get credit, which happened in like 2008, 2009, right? They couldn't get any loans or anything like that. So, we were it.
So this would be a good time. But then the other side of it is when there's job loss, we have a tendency to be one of the industries that stay open and thrive, which means that we got a different talent pool available to us than we do now. Although inflationary numbers are rising and the recession is saying everything's slowing down, we've actually seen job growth, which means that we are taking on less experienced employees right now. So the hiring market is with a younger generation. The older generation has kind of stepped out a little bit. Now we have a younger generation. They have less experience. And so now we're the head of the car. We're sending these directions down. How do we safely get those younger generations bought in? Is it just culture or is there more?
Well, I think it's I think most of it probably has to do with culture. You have to be able to stand out, and rent to own. What were the old rules, that you had to be at work on Saturday? You had to be there every Saturday. I remember you said
every Saturday.
You better be dying to call out. You got to stand out, So in the labor market, I'm glad you brought that up because it is tough right now. And low unemployment to me means more difficult time, having more of a pool to pick from. I think right now we're picking whatever we can take. So how do you stand out? Rent to own's a much different type of business. It's like no other retail out there, which for some people, they freaking love it. Okay. We love it, but we're kind of weird, Pete. So we have to accept that we're weird.
We have to just take it on. I was looking at APRO's numbers recently, and they put the rent-to-own industry as a $10 billion industry or $11 billion.
I saw that, yeah.
It's an $11 billion industry. And so it's not a small industry. So when we're talking about pulling from the talent pool, we're pulling a lot. There's a lot of things that we're doing. We're pulling for a lot of different positions, for a lot of different areas, for a lot of different regions, and a lot of different states. And when we're dealing with that new talent pool, we're dealing with the unexperienced or just out of college, and we're trying to get them to understand this is a career. What is the most effective way you've seen to get their mindset that we are an industry to beat and we want talent?
By backing up your words with action. So that's what it is. I think that's what people get lip service every day. And I think that especially younger people where they may be a little less trustful of what we're doing or just even who we are, that, if we say that you can come here and you can have a career, then we have to back that up with solid investment in our new hires, meaning that we've got to take the time to show them how to do things, why we do things the way that we do. And by investing in them, they don't walk off after their first lunch and not come back. But if our first action is to say, and I know how difficult it is when you've been short-staffed for the last 3 months and your credit's out to whack now and and your DAP is full of customers who are tired of waiting, it's so easy to just say, hey, welcome to Buddies, and this is where you park, and we get paid every 2 weeks, and it's your first day, so I need to get you out on the field and help do deliveries. And they do that every day, and we wonder why people walk away, wonder why we have high turnover. We don't invest in people like we should, and if we can do that, we can execute that, our pay is very competitive, right? I think that we've got to sell them on that career, but we've got to do it through action and not just words.
I completely agree. You can't have the lip service, especially nowadays, because people can hold us accountable with social media, cameras, and things like that. So they can say to everybody, hey, this is what's going on. And it might not actually be what's going on, but in their mind, in their thought processes, that's the experience that they went through. And they want to share that. And then other people hear that experience and are like, oh, wait a minute. That's so important to make sure that if you say it, you do it. If you bring somebody in, you talk about culture, you give them the culture. If you're saying that we're going to do the right things, we've got to get great through culture and the accountability. We've got to stay connected to everybody by making sure that we visit, say hello, shake hands and hug and hey, this is what's going on. And when you're having a bad day, it's okay to have a bad day, but we still expect this on the other end of it by showing up, by making sure that our assumptions are nil. We don't assume. We just do it, and we back it up with the words that we say that we're going to do. And what we don't assume is we give good instruction. We let everybody understand that this is what we mean to happen, and this is how you make that happen. And this is our little label on the back of the spray can. And we can only do that by writing down our successes, making sure that we're checking them off individually as we know, as detailed as possible, that we can make that plan to be. And then we do it with good time management. That's what we got to do. That's what Mike brings to the table today with Buddy's Home Furnishings, bringing this idea that we can close that gap between upper management and who's actually getting it done by holding ourselves accountable. Don't give out the lip service and don't assume.
Pretty beautiful thing you just said there, Pete. I like it. Right. It's a good idea you got there, Pete.
That's my Gettysburg Address for you, ladies and gentlemen, today in the RTO industry. We do appreciate you listening to the podcast. If you guys want to hear more of us, go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, or you can go to the website at www.thertoshowpodcast.com. You can listen to us on there. If you're there and you see something that you like, you can buy some swag. Mike's got a shirt today, and everybody else, I encourage you to get a shirt if you're there watching. Just so you guys know, we are sponsored by APRO, Vox Pop Uli, and Dialectic. They're great to our cause and great to what we're doing on this podcast. And listen, guys, we want to tell you, we really appreciate it. If you want to reach out, you can reach me at pete@thertoshowpodcast.com. That's my email, or you can hit us up on the DMs through Facebook and Instagram. Both of those are The RTO Show. And remember to keep your collections low to get your sales high. Have a great one.